The weather is going to be pretty crazy over the next several days in the United States, as we are going to be dealing with more rounds of severe weather, tropical storms in the Gulf of Mexico, and perhaps even near Florida and Texas. And we'll also be talking about a monster heat wave that is going to be bringing record-breaking high temperatures to a very large chunk of the United States. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down everything that you need to know about all of these and more. Let's begin though with what's happening right now across the United States today. And this is the infrared imagery from very early this morning, and it gives you a pretty good idea of what's happening right now. We actually have a spinning area back over in the Gulf of Mexico right now, which this currently, at the time of recording this forecast, is Potential Tropical Cyclone One, meaning that this is actually very close to being an official tropical storm, but that area of wind is not yet in the center of where this low pressure system is. So it's not yet a tropical storm, but it's very close to being one, and over the next few days, this particular tropical system is going to be moving northwest, eventually going towards areas like Texas and as well as Mexico. Now, we are very early into hurricane season, meaning most storms like this are not going to become hurricanes, especially being in June. Usually we don't have many hurricanes, and in this case, I don't expect this to become a hurricane, but I do think this will be a really significant rainmaker. I think we're going to be watching for significant flooding across both Texas and as well as back into parts of Mexico, where some areas could pick up upwards of 15 inches of rain, and that also includes Texas, by the way. Further off to the north and west, you'll notice back over in the northern plains, plenty of showers and thunderstorms ongoing. Really significant storms up there with mostly damaging winds early this morning. That's all now moved into the Midwest, and we are going to watch for more explosive initiation anywhere from Minnesota back into Kansas later today, with another round of severe weather being in the forecast. And you can blame all this moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico that is leading to this very organized setup back over in the northern plains and the Midwest, which is going to continue to bring lots of rounds of showers and thunderstorms all the way through this weekend. The tropics are definitely starting to ramp up, as we have two different areas of development that we are watching for right now. We have one of which that is east of Florida, and this one has a very low chance of developing over the next 5 days, but this will eventually move west towards Florida and the Carolinas, bringing some showers, maybe some thunderstorms. Overall, I don't expect this to be that significant, though. I don't think we're going to get a hurricane out of this, but wave heights could be as high as 10 feet just offshore of East Florida, so definitely something to watch for if you are a boater. And then back over in the Southwest Gulf, we actually have another area of development. This is not from Potential Tropical Cyclone One, which is located right here in the Southwest Gulf, which will eventually move northwest, by the way. But this area of development is actually something that'll happen later this week, and you can blame this very large high pressure system for basically being a director into the Gulf of Mexico for tropical waves. We have multiple tropical waves right now moving into the Gulf, and this is all from this high pressure system, which is steering these systems, and that'll continue for the next several days and probably all the way through the weekend. So we could get another tropical storm or two over the next few days. So it's something to definitely watch for if you're in the Gulf or even back over on the East Coast. Now, speaking of Potential Tropical Cyclone One, this is expected to become officially a tropical storm either today or into tomorrow as this continues its journey to the north and west. Right now, the likely landfall will be somewhere here in Mexico, but the landfall spot really doesn't matter a whole lot because we are going to be talking about significant flooding up and down from Texas back into Mexico. So overall, even though the landfall currently expected to be in Mexico, we will still see very significant rain in Texas. Over the next few days, this tropical system will continue to spin just offshore of Texas, but with that said, the heavy rain will really begin late tonight and eventually going into tomorrow. Notice many showers and thunderstorms are going to be in the forecast there, so prolific rainfall is expected across the Texas coast and even back into northeastern Mexico, where showers and thunderstorms will continue to be a possibility. Overall, tornado risk, I'm not really expecting one out of this. Sometimes we do get that with tropical storms. This one doesn't appear to be that way. Maybe a low risk late Wednesday, but again, not really too confident about that. Eventually by Thursday into Friday, that clears out, and by the time we go into the weekend and eventually into next week, another tropical system could develop in the Southwest Gulf. This one could be more concerning, but as of right now, it is very uncertain of where it will go. Right now, the European model is still steering this towards the Texas coast, but there is a possibility that this goes further to the north, and if that happens, we could get something that's a bit more intense and stronger, maybe a stronger tropical storm or even a hurricane hurricane, but it's really too early to speculate since we are still well over 5 days out and it's not even developed yet as well. Now, the HRRR model is a short-term computer model, and this goes all the way through Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And this gives you an idea of the rainfall accumulation just along the east coast of Texas. And notice some areas could legitimately pick up upwards of 10 to 15 inches of rain. Though that'll be a pretty isolated threat in nature, it will definitely be a possibility. So definitely be prepared for flooding anywhere from Beaumont back into Corpus Christi. That is where the most significant rainfall is currently expected in Texas. Now, the European model, which is going to be giving you lower resolution, so overall it's not going to show you where the highlight will be in terms of the heaviest rainfall. It'll at least give you a general idea of where that heaviest rainfall will be, and that'll be anywhere again from Beaumont and Galveston back into Corpus Christi. Right along the coast is where the most significant rainfall will likely occur. But the other thing to keep in mind is that any bands of rain that really stay heavy inland will dump lots of rain, so be prepared for that, especially just south of Houston. Storm surge up and down the coast up to 4 feet is expected as well, so if you're along the immediate coastline, take evacuation seriously. In other shocking news, we have more severe weather ahead across the United States for tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday. We have another slight risk of severe weather from Minnesota back into Kansas, where widespread thunderstorm activity is expected today. Overall, the severe weather risk, though, will remain a little bit more isolated. We also have another marginal threat into the northeast, right along Lake Erie and back near Lake Huron. That main concern up there will be wind and hail, very similar to what we saw yesterday in Ohio and Indiana, with some wind and hail storms being a possibility. Overall, wind and hail, main concern across the Great Plains. Notice that wind and hail threat all across here from Minnesota back into Texas. Again, it's going to be mostly an isolated to widely scattered threat, but protect vehicles, do all those sorts of precautions just in case there's any sort of severe weather threat there. In addition to that, we'll have a chance for an isolated tornado or two. A couple areas that I'll be watching for the greatest concern, one of which will be back up in here in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then another one back over here in southwest Kansas. I wouldn't be surprised if we had something a little bit more crazy down here, but obviously it is still a very low chance overall of seeing tornadoes. Just make sure that you have a tornado action plan just in case. We get a break on Wacky Weather Wednesday, believe it or not. We have a very small area across the country that we're looking at for severe weather. Very small area in the Midwest. We have another small area back over in 5 different states, and then a very small tornado risk back over in far south Texas, which is going to be from the tropical system. Right now, there is a small 2% tornado risk there. Again, very low chance, but with any tropical storm, there typically is at least a low threat for tornadoes, and that'll exist back down that direction for Wednesday. For the timing today, we'll be watching for storm initiation right around 2 to 3 o'clock across anywhere from Iowa back into Kansas, and this will also stretch back up into Minnesota, which you'll see here in just a moment. Once we go into 4 to 5 o'clock, storms will continue to blow up. These are going to be very slow-moving storms, especially in Kansas, where there's going to be very little steering. In addition to that, Texas will be in the same boat, so these storms will be very slow-moving, which means that flash flooding will be a concern, especially in southwest Kansas, and really a very favorable environment if you're a storm chaser, because these storms will barely move over the span anywhere from about 3 to 4 o'clock all the way until about midnight. Once we go into the overnight hours, storms will continue across Iowa, but again, mostly just sporadic hail and wind, and then back over in Kansas, the same sort of thing, but I think these storms might be just a little bit more significant than the ones back over in Iowa. Overnight tonight, and eventually going into Wednesday, we'll still watch showers and thunderstorms across this area. They're going to continue all the way towards lunchtime on Wednesday, and then things start to wind down a bit as we go into Wednesday night. Another area for initiation will be back over in the 5 states, back over in like northwestern Texas Panhandle and such. Again, the main concern there will be wind and hail. Back over in the Midwest, storms will initiate right around 3 to 4 o'clock, and they will really get going quickly. Again, it's going to be widespread storms, but don't be too caught off guard by that, because a lot of these storms will not be severe. The ones that are severe will produce damaging winds, large hail, and maybe an isolated tornado. Things continue to roll east as we go into the overnight hours, but again, pretty weak storm activity after midnight tonight, and then eventually as we go into Wednesday morning, things look a little bit quieter, but once we go into the afternoon, we'll probably see another storm initiation back over in eastern Iowa, back into northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, where some sporadic hail and wind will be possibilities. Tornado risk remains low. And once we go later into the week, that high pressure system will continue to dominate across the eastern tier of the United States. Very strong jet stream, a bit of a meridional flow right now, which is going to keep things very active back over over in parts of the northern plains in the Midwest. But once we go into Thursday, Friday, into Saturday, that ridge will likely start to move more towards the southern plains, and that could allow for that warm air to kind of siphon down into areas like the southern plains as well. Once we go into Sunday into Monday, we could get a pretty significant trough growing across the upper Midwest and the northern plains. This could be our next severe weather maker for the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and the Northeast, but overall timing differences and such still remain uncertainty points with that particular storm. And then once we go into next week, we'll likely get a more zonal flow across the United States, which will keep many areas above average when it comes to temperatures. Back over in the northern plains, we'll probably still continue to watch for showers and thunderstorms, but overall severe weather will be a much lower risk, I think, next week. And over the next several days, that really big heat wave will continue across the Northeast, where very above average temperatures are in the forecast. Some colder air will usher into the northern and central plains. This should create some mixing, and that could actually lead to more severe weather by the tail end of this week. And then once we go into the weekend and eventually into next week, that low pressure system likely to move across Canada. That'll continue that surge of warm air in the Northeast and the East Coast, where record-breaking high temperatures will continue all the way into the weekend, with some areas as high as 100 degrees in the Northeast. We actually had Toledo, Ohio at 98 degrees yesterday, which is insane. And then once we go into next week, things will stay warm over there. We might get some colder air sometime later next week, but that still remains to be seen. Temperatures for today and as well as tomorrow will stay hot. Many areas in the low 90s across the Northeast. Wednesday looks like one of the hottest days of the week, especially across the Northeast, where some areas could reach as high as 100 degrees back over in eastern New York. And then once we go into Thursday afternoon and evening, temperatures will continue to surge across most of the country, including the Ohio Valley, with areas in the low to mid 90s. So definitely be prepared for the heat, and also make sure that you're staying very hydrated, as heat can be very dangerous, especially with high temperatures into the mid 90s, and heat indices could be over 100 in some spots. And in addition to that, if you're somebody that's outside very frequently, try to limit that outdoor time over the next few days. Also, I wanted to give everybody a huge shout out for anybody that's a member on this channel. We have another upgrade to show you. We have a brand new Stream Deck, and this will be able to help us on live streams. We have now a 32 button Stream Deck, so transitions, going to different storm chasers, and all that sort of stuff will be way easier. So I do appreciate all of the members on this channel. We are continuing to do big upgrades, and we have 2 more monitors that'll be coming also here pretty soon. If you want to support the page above and beyond as well, you can become a member by clicking the join button down below. It comes with a ton of benefits, including exclusive live streams, a badge, and a lot more. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.